So a harbor is like when it is raining, you see that you go to find a shelter where the rain will not hit you, isn't it? You go and find some shelter away from the rain coming down on you and soaking you wet. You go to find. So the harbor is something like that, an enclave for the ships where they can go and lie and wait for the bad weather to pass over. So that's the difference between the two of them. As I said, we have two main types. We have the natural harbors like Rio de Janeiro in Brazil and then Sydney in Australia. They are naturally occurring harbors. So with the naturally occurring harbors, what they have now done is that they have built it up. So even though it was a natural harbor, it didn't remain as a harbor. If it's a harbor, normally it wouldn't have any berths. But even though it was a naturally occurring harbor, they have now put in structures, beds, and so on. So then it becomes a port eventually. But naturally, there was that enclave. Okay. So most of the time with the natural harbors, they don't even need to put these breakwaters in. Then the artificial harbors, we have Poole Harbour in the UK, Tema in Ghana, and then Capri Harbour in Italy, Port Jebel Ali in Dubai. They are all artificial harbors. So this is the Port Jackson, Sydney Harbour. It's a naturally occurring harbour all over the place. So you don't have any real breakwaters because the land is shaped in such a way that they don't need any breakwaters to stop the waves from coming. And I have the Rio de Janeiro, okay, also a natural harbour. As you can see, the small hills there stops the waves from breaking in, so they don't need to put in any artificial into the water like you see for Tema Harbour. And then Poole Harbour, Dorset in the UK is also a natural harbour. Then for the artificial harbour, you see that for Capri Port, you have the arm going out this way and then the other one. Usually there will be two. Then they will leave an entrance for the ships to come in. As you can see here, where's the pointer? Is it one? So this one is the arm, the eastern arm. This will be the western arm to create a break. That is why it is called breakwaters. To create a break so that the waves will not come and hit the ships that are in port here. So the ship then have to move through the entrance, in and out through this entrance here. Okay. And this is Port Jebel Ali in Dubai. This is an artificial harbour. They had to create it from the scratch. And Tema Harbour, as you can see. Why are you laughing? Tema Harbour has the arm, you have the eastern arm and the western arm. This is where you now have, this is a plan of it, because they don't have the area picture for me to get. So you have the plan of the harbour. And then you have, this is where we now have the MPS. Okay, before they started, this is how it is. You have the Tema Harbour. So we say that a port is a commercial harbour since it is primarily designed and organized for commercial use, and therefore often we refer to them as gateways between the land and the water, because it is more organized. As I said, sometimes you can have even banks, you can have manufacturing concerns as a free port, or you can have other houses, commercial houses within that enclave that they call a port. So if you take, for example, the port of Rotterdam, it's a very big, we'll be using it as a case study later on. It's a very, very large area, very, very big area, which has been designated as a port. So a commercial port is a place where the land and water joins. It to have facilities to accommodate loading, discharging, storing of cargo for seagoing vessels, receiving and dispatching of cargo via other means of transport on land, and also transport on land also takes place. Sometimes they strategically station the harbour is very close to the airport, and you also have in the advanced countries, as you will see, they have railway lines all over the port. Okay, so unlike what we have here, where the articulator trucks are virtually taking over the port of Tema, but in most of the advanced countries, the trucks do not come in at all. They are nowhere near the ports. They are somewhere else. And then they have the train, railway wagons picking the cargoes in and out. Evolution of ports. Initially, they started as just some simple physical sea and land interface. When you watch some of the very, very old movies, you see that they didn't go to any berth as we see it or we know it now. They'll just go and anchor somewhere, and then they will be transporting the cargo, but it will be shallow, okay? Shallow water, and they'll be transferring the cargoes to and from the ship by canoes or by small boats. Accra Harbour, did you know there was a harbour in Accra? How many? Where we have the lighthouse, it used to be the main harbour, the access point, and that is why you see that on that Jamestown stretch, those old buildings that are broken down and they are still standing there. There used to be these warehouses and so on for some of the commercial concerns like UAC, UTC, and so on. They own those things. So their goods will come and they store them there. So they were more like warehouses, okay, because of the Accra Harbour. So we used to have a harbour in Accra, and that is why we have the lighthouse there, the Accra Lighthouse. So they used to be very simple physical structures interfacing the land and sea, and later on they started developing into commerce and industrial centers, and now they are logistics and distribution platforms, intermodal nodes in international supply chain networks. Okay, all being driven by the need for trade competitiveness and efficiency. You know, trade goes on between countries these days. There's no country that doesn't have some form of trade. Even the small islands scattered around in some parts of the world, they still have to have goods delivered to them, and if they have anything, then they export them. So everybody is linked in a way, and the shipping industry is a very competitive one, and because of that, they are always looking at ways to reduce the costs in operation of ships. The ship owners are very, very keen on reducing the costs in operation of ships. So the evolution in that sector is very, very fast. There are about some 2,000 ports around the world, from single bed locations which handle just a few hundred tons a year to multi-purpose facilities handling more than 300 million tons a year. If you look at ports like Shanghai in China or Singapore ports, you see that they handle a lot of cargo in any year. Tema, we are holding our own ground in the African, West African sub-region, but we are nowhere near some of these big ports. Okay. Most of shipping started with the general cargo ships, as I told you yesterday, but now containers have taken over. Containers are everywhere. When you go to most ports that are serious and want to be in business, they always want to acquire some land and then have their container terminals and stacking areas and so on. Because container is the in thing. It looks like it has come to stay. Nothing would displace it. As I told you yesterday, even the barges could not displace containers because containers are very handy and they are easier to operate than the barges would. The barges have their own place in certain parts of the world, but when it comes to international trade, containers holds the day. And over the last, now it will be 50 decades, because it started in 1956. So now it's well over 2 decades. It's about 50 decades. Currently, the container trade is heaviest in the Far East. You know, they are more serious than we are in Africa. If you look at Africa, it's only 3% control of container traffic, because we are not producers, we are consumers. So the traffic here is very little. And also most of the things we export are all raw materials. Raw materials do not go by containers. That is why you see that in Tema Port, about 3/4 of the time is bulk carriers that are here, not container vessels. Okay. Containers do come in, but they are not as many compared to the bulk carriers. But in the Far East, most of their trade is containers, because they produce special